Some addictions are bad, but this one gets me outside, gets me healthy exercise, and brings me treasures from the sea. Welcome. Thank you for being fearlessly, fabulously you. Of course, I'm talking about sea glass hunting. Sea glass, if you don't know, is also called beach glass. And what it is at some point, glass has been tossed into the sea. It either ends up there by being washed in from the shore, or people dump it. They used to dump it all the time in the sea. And over time, that glass gets broken and tumbled, and the sea and the sand and any coral and rocks work on that glass, and they bring it to this beautiful little shape of a jewel. And sea glass hunting is, I like to think of it as Easter egg hunting for adults. It is so much fun. If you like beach combing, you'll love sea glass hunting. Now, I used to collect seashells a lot, and I still do that, and I still enjoy that. I also have a river rock obsession. I love river rock. There's just something about holding it in my hand and finding that smooth surface and wondering just how long it's been there. Well, sea glass hunting is it's like nature's way of turning litter from humanity into jewels. And I have a collection of sea glass. I started collecting sea glass when I lived on Maui. And I lived by this small beach. So if you ever go to Maui and you're in Kihei, go to this beach. You will probably find sea glass there if you go at the right time. The best time to go is right after the tide has come in and then washed out, and there's a litter of little shells and pebbles along the beach. Sea glass is easiest to find in areas that are pebbly because like attracts like. And so you go walking along looking for these opaque bits of rounded glass that sometimes are pitted, and you can find, usually what you'll find are green or white or brown sea glass. Those are the most common. White and brown probably being the very most common. Green after that, it's sort of an aqua color like this. Now this is not real sea glass. This is artificial sea glass. It's been made to look like sea glass. But real sea glass is usually a little bit pitted, maybe not as beautiful as this, not as shiny certainly as this. And there is a sea glass etiquette. So when you're out looking for sea glass, you do not want to keep any sea glass that's not cooked yet. They call it cooked. And cooked means that it's completely rounded. You don't want any sharp edges. For one thing, it's not really safe, but for another thing, it's just not ready yet. So you toss that back in the sea. That's what you're supposed to do. So I'm going to show you some of my sea glass collections, and then we'll talk about what you can do with sea glass once you have it. Now, I'm so addicted to sea glass hunting that I actually wrote a book on it, and I'll put a link to that in the description. I did it under a pen name, but it's my book. And it's done very well. I don't promote it at all, and people love it because those of us who are sea glass hunters will plan entire vacations around sea glass. So this is sea glass locations throughout the world, and I've done some research on that. Some of these I've visited myself, and some of them I have yet to visit. And I'm hoping next year that I am going to be doing a sea glass vacation, and I will tell you all about it if I do. So here are two Maui sea glass stories. First, I forgot to tell you about the beach that I would always go to and find sea glass on Maui. It's called Kalipolipo, and it's in North Kihei on South Kihei Road, just past the Kihei Canoe Club. You'll find it. It just says Kalipolipo Beach Park. And you just park there, and you walk down to the left a bit. And if you come at the right time, which is after the tide has washed in a bunch of pebbles and rock and sea glass, that is the time to go. And you just walk along, it's like a quarter of a mile at the most, this stretch of beach, and you look in that debris and you can find sea glass. Nearly every morning I would find sea glass there. So that's one story on Maui. The other story is that I was telling a friend of mine who has a condo in Ma'alea, which is across the way. And I was telling her about sea glass. And we had gone over there for pupus, which are hors d'oeuvres in Hawaiian. And we were outside, and I was just telling her about sea glass. And she didn't really live in a place that was sea glass friendly. It was on the ocean, but it had big lava rock beds. You know, it was more like big flat, rock. And I said, well, you probably won't find any here, but I'll show you how I look for it. And we started walking. I found one of the biggest pieces of sea glass I've ever found. It was brown. It was kind of an odd shape. It looked like maybe it had been the top of a bottle at some point, but it had been completely rounded, and it was about that big, which is big for sea glass. And of course I gave it to her, and then I regretted giving it to her because I will she appreciate this as much as I would have? But anyway, she has that piece of sea glass now. So even though you want to look in areas that are, sea glass friendly, sometimes you can find it in other places. Now you may be asking, what do you do with sea glass once you have it? Well, people do make jewelry out of it. As I said, this is not sea glass jewelry, but people do make jewelry out of it. I have trouble drilling holes in sea glass. I just find it so beautiful on its own that I just can't imagine doing that. But there are ways to do wire wrapping around it, and you could make maybe some jewelry. I'm not really a jewelry maker. I'm not terribly crafty in that way at all. I have a few things that I'll do in that direction, but I just collect it. And I collect it in these wonderful Japanese tea bowls that a former client of mine, I used to be a realtor, and he was a sculptor, and he made these wonderful Japanese tea bowls. And when I was helping him move out of his house into assisted living, he had all of these Japanese tea bowls, and he said, would you like one? And I said, oh, I would love one. That would be great. And he said, well, you pick whichever one you want. And so I selected one. And he said, good choice. That was made from the ashes of St. Helens. And it was beautiful. And I started looking online. I was planning on purchasing some Japanese tea bowls for a collection. Well, he then ended up gifting me another, almost a dozen Japanese tea bowls. So I have those, and I use them, and I sort of organize my sea glass by color, shape, or location of where I found it. And I keep them in those tea bowls in my kitchen on a display shelf. And they mean so much to me. In addition to jewelry, people also make artwork out of sea glass. I've seen some beautiful displays of that. I did purchase a printer's tray, a typesetting tray, and I intended to display some of my sea glass in that, but right now I'm happy with it in the Japanese tea bowl, so I haven't done that. I also had thought about doing a mosaic patio table and putting my sea glass in there, and I may do that at some point. I just want to make sure that that the sea glass is actually opaque. So I'd have to do it in a clear area where you could sort of see through it, because that's kind of the beauty of sea glass. A friend of mine once tried to make me a sea glass display in a little frame, and he totally ruined it. I was so mad because it was some of my better pieces of sea glass and it was dark behind it, so it just looked like nothing. I was just so irritated, but I mean, he tried. Do you have a healthy addiction like sea glass? If so, please drop it in the comments. You might inspire someone else to meet you on the trail or the mountain or wherever your healthy addiction exists. Thank you for joining me. Stay fearless and fabulous, and I'll see you next time. Fearless and Fabulous brings you new videos twice a week. Wellness Wednesdays for vibrant health, and Fearless and Fabulous Fridays with bold adventures to inspire. Subscribe and live a fearless, fabulous life.